Okay, so I'd like to introduce just briefly our presenters and then allow them to tell you a little bit about themselves. We have Karen Fletcher and Katie Howard, some of our experts here from Appalachian State University, and they're going to present their presentation, Funding Your Research, which we all thought was a really great topic, something that we would all find a lot of value from. So I'm going to hand it over to them and let them get started.
Great, thank you. Again, I'm Karen Fletcher. I'm the Director of Grants, Resources, and Services here at Appalachian State University, and with me is Katie Howard, and she's our Assistant Director of Grants, Resources, and Services at Appalachian State University. The Grants, Resources, and Services Office, it's a mouthful, but what we do here is support faculty and staff in searching for the right supporter for specific research, creative endeavors of projects, and we provide feedback to faculty on fundable ideas based on the funding landscape, as well as tips on crafting persuasive and competitive narratives. Today, we want to highlight some tools to help you get started in finding out where the money might be for your research or creative endeavor, how to make an argument to be funded, as well as some reviewer's advice. And we're just going to hit some highlights in the next 30 minutes. We also would like this presentation to be interactive. So on some slides, you are going to see a yellow star in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, just like this one. And this means it's an interactive slide. And when you see this, we'll tell you what to do, but we're going to practice right now. If you will scroll your mouse up on your screen towards the top, you should see a drop-down menu that says View Options. If you'll click on that and then look for Annotate, and click on Annotate, a box should come up and you have the option to click on Draw, and there you can find a check mark of your choice and go ahead and click on that and then click somewhere on the screen so we can see it. Or you can choose text, the T with the text, and that's a text box, and you can write stuff in that as well. Great. Looks good. And we are going to, all right, great, thank you. We're going to clear this now and we're going to go on. So thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Miss Katie Howard.
All right, can everybody hear me okay? All right, thanks. So to get us started, if you still have your annotation bar and it's in the way, you can push the little red X in the corner of the annotation and it will disappear if you want to see the whole screen. But to get us started, we're going to talk about finding the right sponsor. So if you have an idea for some research or a project or an outreach program that might need some external funding, you want to start the process by seeking an appropriate sponsor. And a sponsor, I'm going to use the word sponsor and funding agency interchangeably. So a sponsor is basically an agency or a business or a corporation or a foundation that provides money or other types of support to you as a researcher or program director to accomplish certain tasks or goals that enrich your professional experience and role. So I'm going to use that word a lot throughout the next few slides, and I just want to make sure we were all on the same page with that. So as you're seeking sponsors and you're exploring sponsor opportunities, there are several important things that you need to keep in mind. The first thing is seeing if it's a good fit. And to do that, a great place to start is an organization's website. They have lots of resources there on their websites, as most of your websites have resources. And their mission statement is a really important first place to start. You can usually find that under their About tab or their Mission Statement tab or even their homepage. And that's going to tell you what their goals are for their organization. And you want to find an organization or a sponsor where you will have a mutually beneficial relationship. You need to have a way to align your programmatic goals and outcomes with their desired outcomes as well. You want it to be a mutually beneficial relationship. So you need to be thinking about how you're going to frame your project proposal in a way that's going to show the sponsor how it's going to be good for them. What's in it for them? You can also look at things like their funding history and see what their past grantees are like and what their past programs are like. You can explore if they've funded universities in the past. If they've never funded a university or a university library, then odds are not good that they're going to fund you. You want to be able to see that they have a funding history that sort of aligns with your type of project and your organization before you decide they're a good fit for you. And also on their website, you'll find information about contact information, their program officer name. There might not be a program officer for each program, but there will likely be somebody who you can call if you have questions. After you've been through their whole website, read some guidelines, explored some programs they might offer, and you still have questions, you can always call the contact person and ask. All of these are good things to do before you start actually putting together a grant proposal. Another thing you can do is staying current with publications in your field. If a sponsor funds a project that results in a publication, the researcher likely has to directly credit the sponsor in that publication. So if you're reading scholarly articles from your areas of expertise about things that interest you, and you see that a certain sponsor has funded this research, they're likely going to be a good fit for your research as well. Good places to start there. Professional organizations like this one, go to conferences, experience professional interaction. Their newsletters, meetings, websites often list funding opportunities, even if they're not funded by that particular organization. They sometimes list ones that are relevant or related to that field broadly and narrowly. And then talk to your colleagues and mentors. What are they doing? What types of research are they doing? Have they been funded? Are they working on a funded project? See what agencies and foundations support them financially, and then see if you can collaborate with them. That often gives you a good foot in the door to see what it's like to work on a funded project, and also to see what it's like working with that certain funding agency. And then keeping a list of keywords is a great tip and trick to seeking funding through a sponsor. No one knows better than librarians and media specialists how to utilize keywords. So keep keywords broadly and narrowly related to your areas of interest or expertise while you're looking through databases or doing a Google search or anything like that, making sure that those keywords pop up and they align with sponsor and sponsor mission statements or in programmatic goal statements to help you match your areas of interest with the appropriate sponsor. Okay, so here on this slide, it's an interactive slide again. So just to remind you what you need to do is go to the top of the screen, hover over options, select the annotate tool, and then hover and you'll be able to select a check mark, or you can draw your own check mark if you prefer. I want you to mark these programs, any of these programs that you are familiar with, that you may have heard of before. Great, and while you're marking these programs, I'll tell you a little bit about them. So we have just pulled up some programs that may be of interest to you as you all are working in library and media fields. These are great common programs for you to start your search. You can explore these. These are live links when you download the presentation and the materials that Kelly McAllister is going to provide for all of you on the website after we are finished presenting. So there are live links and they'll take you to these programmatic web pages. The Cluj Fellowship is a Library of Congress fellowship, and it is specifically for exploring the impact of digital revolution on society, culture, and international relations using the Library of Congress library. The Institute of Museum and Library Services grants, there are 2 of those listed there. The Laura Bush program supports professional development and other professional development in a broad sense of the word to explore and develop a diverse workforce of librarians. The National Leadership Grant for Libraries is expected to generate results like new tools, research findings, models, et cetera, that can be widely used, adapted, scaled, or replicated. And then the Library Services and Technology Act grants are trickle-down funds from the federal IMLS to the states. We have 2 programs in North Carolina specifically. The EASY grants are short-term, 1-year projects ranging from $5,000 to $50,000. Project grants are their larger multi-year projects that start at $50,000 and go up from there. The Council on Library and Information Resources grants are specifically for digitizing and providing access to non-digital collections of rare content. And then Mellon Foundation grants, which a lot of you seem to be familiar with already, And they support a wide range of initiatives to strengthen humanities, arts, higher education, and all of that. They are by invitation only right now, but you can inquire about being invited. So you can always contact them and pitch your idea and see if they might be interested in sending you an invitation. The National Endowment for the Humanities programs at the bottom, again, these are larger federal programs about sustaining and preserving resources to help mitigate deterioration and prolonging the life of institutional resources. So I would encourage all of you, if these sound like interesting programs for you that might be matchable to your interests, to explore those. Again, we'll have live links available in the materials provided afterwards. I'm going to go ahead and clear these annotations. Thank you again for providing some feedback. Okay, so most of us come from a college or university setting, I'm assuming, since we're in the college or university section of this conference. And most universities do pay to access certain databases, which you can utilize to locate funding opportunities. And I would encourage you to explore those while you're seeking funding for your research or your projects. However, there are a lot of free options too, and so I wanted to draw your attention to these opportunities for seeking funding. Grants.gov is a really popular, common way to explore funding opportunities provided by the federal government at all times. I would encourage you to go and look through there. It has got everything. Sometimes it can be a bear to sort of weed through all of that information, but you can find real lifetime funding opportunities. You can download application packets and kind of see what is available out there for funding. Google is an excellent resource, as always. Be prepared to kind of wade through some extraneous information that might pop up, but keeping a good list of keywords will help you narrow it down. And I have found some really excellent opportunities for folks just utilizing Google. Sponsor websites, which we talked about before, going to those websites and exploring what funding opportunities are available for them right now and maybe upcoming opportunities. Looking at those, I put the image up there for the North Carolina Arts Council. I know not all of us might be in North Carolina, but most states have arts councils, and our Arts Council website provides funding opportunities through the Arts Council itself, but they also provide a great list of artist opportunities that are beyond the Arts Council, and they provide that as an RSS feed that you can subscribe to. And then the Philanthropy News Digest is a free resource out of the Foundation Center, which here our library and the Office of Research share a subscription to the Foundation Center. So we have the paid version, but the Philanthropy News Digest is a weekly digest that I can get by email that has opportunities for foundation funding opportunities. So feel free to subscribe to that and go to their website and just explore these free opportunities as they are available to you as well. So once you have explored and discovered the appropriate sponsor, and maybe you have identified some programs like the ones we have reviewed earlier that might be good fits for you, you want to take a little bit of time and do a little more investigation and digging to make sure it really is the right fit for you, so you don't go through the arduous process of putting together a huge grant application package and find out that it actually isn't going to be a good fit for you, and you've done all that work and it's not going to work out. So you do a little bit of pre-investigation. A lot of this information you can find in the RFP or request for proposals or the guidelines portion of a program to find out what the information that you're looking for. So the first thing you want to look at is eligibility, and you want to look for some key indicators. Do they allow applications from 501c3s? Does your library have its own 501c3 number? Do you need to use the university's number? Are you a 501c3? IHE is a common acronym, and that's Institution for Higher Education. See if they preclude or include applications from those types of institutions to make sure you're eligible, and see if they have any indicators about if they allow funding or allow applications, excuse me, from public or private educational institutions. Appalachian State is a public institution of higher education, so that makes us ineligible for some opportunities, and it makes us eligible for others. So know the key words and key indicators that are representative of your area to make sure that you are eligible. And if you have questions about that, someone in your grants office can help you discover the answer, or other colleagues who are familiar with the grant funding environment. The timeline is important. So you want to look and see, when is the deadline? Is it a realistic deadline for you to meet? Is the deadline tomorrow at 5 o'clock? Then that's probably not a realistic deadline for you. Is it a few months out, a few weeks out? Again, when would the funds be available? If you were so fortunate to get funding, when would the funding come through? Is that within a reasonable time for you to complete your project or your program, or is it not an appropriate time? And then if the deadline was last week, is it a recurring program? Odds are good that the answer to this is yes. A lot of funding happens on an annual cycling basis. So if you just missed the deadline, don't fret. Likely it will come around again next year. Look at the amount of award. Is it enough money for your project? Is it too much money? Do you need $5,000 and it's a $50,000 grant? That's a good indicator. You don't want to ask for $50,000 if you only need $5,000. And the amount of award, see what they allow you to spend the money on. Make sure the grant will fund the things you actually need funding for. For example, if you need materials and supplies, but the grant only funds travel, it's not a good fit for you. So before you do all the work of putting together a program, you need to make sure that it is the actual right program for you. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Karen, and she's going to go through some grant writing tips and tricks and reviewer feedback options.
Thank you, Katie. And so I'm going right off of what she was saying. There are multiple grant opportunities out there, and this is one of our interactive times. I'm not going to go through and read this slide. Obviously there's a lot of information, but chances are you've already started reading them. So go ahead and go up to view options and annotate, and click on make a check mark near any of the grants that you might be familiar with. For instance, matching grants and challenge grants are very common, where if it's a $100,000 grant, there's $50,000 that they'll give you, but you have to match it with $50,000 as well. So there are, depending on what you are trying to support, there are many different ways to go about that. You can see there's a few that are standing out. Great. So you can see you can also lean on each other when you're going after these grants. All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen to go on to the other. And you'll have time to read these when you download the material that you're going to get from Kelly. All right. So now what funding sources are looking for is a lot of what Katie was saying already when you're searching for what kind of opportunities are out there. And funding sources are looking for what you can do for them. So you really need to go into understanding their mission. Is it something you can make your mission? Do you talk the same language that they do? Can you prove there's a need for the problem you are telling them you want to solve? Because you want to find a gap that needs to be filled so that you can show them what you can do with their money. Have you read the literature out there? Are you up to date? Can you cite what's going on and not repeat something that's already been done? You want to tell the funder what will happen if you don't get to fix the problem that you're talking about or fill the gap that you've found. You don't want to assume that the reader will know what you're talking about. The reader is the reviewer. You can't assume the self-importance for what you're trying to do. You just need to tell them what that is, and you need to relate it back to their mission. You want to set goals, but you have to be realistic about them. So as Katie was saying, you need to make sure you make the money that you're asking for, you need to make sure that you need it. So if you need $10,000, don't go after a grant that's for $750,000. If you've got a 3-year endeavor, don't look for something that's only going to fund you for a year unless you have a plan to get money those following years. They will be able to see through anything that you're trying to, if it's a 3-year endeavor and you're saying you can do it in 1, they'll be able to see through that. So make sure that you're realistic. The grant reviewers that are going to read the grant proposals aren't necessarily experts in the field, but they are able to, they know what the mission is, and they are going to be able to see what makes sense. So everything you put in there does need to be realistic and make sense. They are, if there is a monetary match, you want to make sure you don't commingle funds. That means federal money cannot be used for matching dollars with another federal grant. So this is a good opportunity to work with your sponsored programs office or your office of research, because they can help you with those budget determinations as well as other things in the grant proposals that they're more familiar with. Funders want to spend money on something that will work, and therefore they're looking for people they can trust. So they'll look at how competent you seem to be, your background, your CV, how long you've been doing your line of work, your consistency in the line of work, and they'll look at your capacity to handle the project you're proposing. So if you have a university that can assist you in administering it or with the location, that does look better when they're reviewing the grants. They also like to give money to people whose programs looks like it's ready to get off the ground. So if you've done a lot of your legwork ahead of time, they're more apt to say, I see this working. So if you've already contacted a community library to work with or a school, and you have that kind of documentation that you can include in your grant proposal, that is very helpful, because they do want to see, they know that it's not a slam dunk all the time when they're giving some money out for a project, but they want to make sure it's as successful as possible. So once you've found that funding opportunity and you've matched your mission, you know that you can give the funder what they're looking for, you can talk their language, you're going to start writing the proposal. So putting the pen to paper actually comes last in the stages. There's a lot of prep work that goes into finding something that'll work, so that you don't put a lot of work into something that's going to fall flat. So when you have a proposal, most proposals are going to have the needs assessment, goals and objectives, methodology and evaluation, as well as the budget and supporting materials. But the hook is one of the most important things. And the hook, we have always been told in storytelling to use theatrics and embellishments and to make it interesting, and then save the punchline for the last. And that's something you do not want to do in a grant proposal. So your hook instead is laying everything out in the very beginning. So you want to let them know what you were doing, why you are doing it, an overview of how you are going to do it, and then what the benefit is to them and society. You want to let them know that in the first paragraph and the first page before you go on to the details of the other sections. The other sections that are common, the needs assessment is a concise demonstration of the specific situation or opportunity, the problem or the issue or the need that the community that you're addressing in your proposal. The program goals and objectives are a succinct description of the proposed project and program's outcomes, the accomplishments in measurable terms, and how it matches the funder's interests. You always want to make sure it's measurable. The methodology is a rational, direct, chronological description of the proposed project and the process used to achieve the outcome and accomplishments. You want to be very detailed, as if it's a recipe or substitute plans, because they want to know exactly what it is, so that in some case, if you weren't able to accomplish it, someone else could come in behind you and do it. That's how detailed you want to be. And then there's an evaluation. So the plan for meeting performance and producing the program or project, because everyone wants to know that their money is going towards something and you've accomplished something. And that's what the importance of the evaluation is. You're going to have a budget, which is going to be realistic, again, as Katie and I both mentioned, about how much money you actually need to do the project, and to make sure that you have the ability to conduct evidence of sound fiscal management, and your grants office probably has someone to help along with that in the funding capacity. We have a special funds accounting, so there's probably something like that at your university as well. The supporting materials, as I had said, is important. If you have any documentation, CVs, or any kind of letters of support from people you're working with. Your authorized signature is going to be someone at your university, probably in the Office of Research or your sponsored programs office. And those people really are the ones who can sign off on a grant proposal to be submitted and receive the money. So you definitely want to find out who that is at your university and work with them. And then if there's any other specifications that they have. A note on writing, basically when you are writing, you are going to have to put it, think about it as a 9th or 10th grade level, or some people say if you can explain what you're doing to your grandmother, then that's the level you need to go to, because you are not going to have experts necessarily reading your proposal. They're going to be people in your area, but not necessarily your discipline or for that project. So you want to avoid those acronyms, any kind of technical jargon that might confuse a reader. So any of those abbreviations, you'll want to avoid. Using positive action terms is really important, and it's something I see a lot when I'm editing proposals, that that it is not used, and it should be. And you really want to pretend you already have the money when you're writing a grant proposal and say, I will do this. This will happen, rather than this is what will happen or I will be doing. It's something psychological when reviewers read it, that they're more apt to believe you can do it if you're writing as if you have the money. You want to use the first person unless it says to use the third person, but you also want to be eliminate any kind of gender specific language if you can. White space and bulleting and images are important to keep the reader engaged. And just imagine how reviewers are reading 500 of these proposals, and anything to close their eyes when they see text from 1-inch margins to the next can really make it difficult to get excited about your program. So if you can use indentations, images that are helpful, that is a nice touch. And you basically use the APA publication manual style, unless you're working with someone someone in a different discipline, if you're assisting them in helping to write a grant proposal, and it is more accustomed to use a different style for their discipline, that's when you'd want to change it up. Again, when you're writing, you want to start with the outcomes. That hook needs to be right from the beginning so that you don't leave anyone guessing. You want to find, do a lit review and find statistics that support your project. Using language to your advantage, again, I'm repeating, go ahead and say, I will do this. Your budget, narrative, and your summary must match. So if you have something in your budget that you're paying for an administrative assistant, but you never mention that in your narrative, that's a problem, and vice versa. So just make sure they match. A lot of times reviewers only get a chance to read the budget and read the first page, which is the project summary. So you want to make sure that you can really tell a story with your budget. And I know a lot of people's eyes might roll back in their head when they see numbers, but it really can tell a story, and you want to make sure you do that. Again, work with your grants office, your sponsored programs office, and make sure they're realistic about how much time you have, that your deadline, you move it ahead a couple days or so. If the sponsored programs office needs to see it 5 days in advance before they submit it, make sure you know how much time you have, and be realistic. As Katie said, if it's tomorrow, you're probably not going to be able to put together a decent proposal, and you want to put your best foot forward.
So we have a comment about gender-specific elimination. Using they, their works very well. He and she and variations can feel awkward and bulky and exclude anyone outside of the gender binary. That comment is absolutely accurate. They, their is always a safe bet. So thank you for that comment.
Great, thanks. So we're going to, we're winding down now. I know it's a lot of information in 30 minutes. We're glad we could put this out to you. So these are the top 10 reasons that reviewers have said they've declined proposals. As you can see, 1 through 3 and 5 are really because you haven't read the guidelines. And that is so important. And Katie had mentioned that, really find out where they are, what they're funding, and how much money that they will be giving out. Number 4, the proposal is poorly written and difficult to understand. If you can get someone else to read your proposal, it's really important. If you can get a third party, if you can explain it to your grandmother, have her read it, that's really important, so that there's no gaps when the reviewers are reading it. So some other reasons are they don't know these people. Are they credible? You need to build up, make sure that you've shown that you are the right person for this job. If it doesn't seem urgent, that means that you really haven't found the right literature, found that gap, and shown that it really needs to happen now. The objectives and plan of action greatly exceed the budget. Again, they're going to be able to see those gaps. So make sure you run it by other people and get other people's opinions and see if they see any problems, and don't try to do too much in too little time. Number 9 is probably one of the worst reasons to get, and that's we've allocated all the money for this grant cycle, and that's just that if someone had $500,000 to give out and they gave $100,000 grants, and yours was the 6th best one, that it's just the luck of the draw. So make sure that if you do receive a declination, which will happen, it's really part of the process. It takes over 2 times to submit before you receive awards typically. Go ahead and call the program officer, get some feedback, you know, and it might be that you were the 6th best, or you know what, we just, when you said you were going to do this, we actually want to go in this direction, and they can help you tweak it. And number 10, there's not enough evidence that the program will become self-sufficient and sustain itself. And that's something that's becoming more important. And you kind of think of it like the train the trainer program. If you can train people to keep training other people, the money will go farther because the information will go farther. And these are 2 classic ones we hear a lot. If I can't understand the title, then I don't fund it. So the title is an opportunity to say exactly what you are doing and make it interesting so that it's almost part of that hook, so they'll read more. And if you haven't told us what you want by the end of the 3rd paragraph, chances are you're not going to get it. Again, that's the hook. You need to put all your chips on the table in the beginning, and then once they're interested, they'll actually read the rest. And then it's what other funders have to say, and we just have some quotes from the Foundation Center in their guide to proposal writing, and these are some common ones as well. Statistics are important but can be confusing. Use them when they set the stage and give a context for the project. So you really want to frame your project so that you can show that there is a gap and there is a need. The statistics can help, just don't overwhelm people, because you know numbers can make people's eyes roll in the back of their heads. Ideas need to stand out. If the format of the proposal helps accomplish that, then it's okay. But fancy fonts and layout don't carry much weight in and of themselves. So be careful how much perfume and pink paper that you submit. You know, you want to make sure that it's readable. If it is clear, concise, and to the point, everything should be there without having to look for it. There should be meat on the bones, but no fat. And that has to do with what you're including as well as format. You want to start with clarity and no fluff. Again, you want to make sure you make your points in the beginning. We like to see more rather than less information in the budget. We want to see how our money will be used and how it will fit into the whole picture. Again, this is their money, so you really want to let them know what you're going to do with it and make sure that you would be a good steward for it. It's big one is, what makes me crazy is an organization ignoring our guidelines. Again, it goes back to what Katie said. Make sure you read them and reread them and make sure what you're proposing fits in with their mission. And don't try to pull the wool over our eyes. Be honest and straightforward. They really want to do good things in the community, just like you really want to do your program or your research. So if you can just be straightforward and let them know what you want to do and be passionate about it, that passion will shine through. And we're leaving you with 2 links, which you'll be able to link out to as live links when you download this presentation from the website. And these are just 2 online pieces that can help write some grant proposals, or give you tips and tricks on how to write those pieces of the grant proposals, which hopefully you can find helpful as you read through them. And now, if there are any other questions that come up or comments from things that we have talked about, please let us know.
Thanks, Karen and Katie. That was really great. Yeah, we'd love if you want to have a chat, please put any questions in the chat box and we'll have a little time for some discussion.
And if you are at Appalachian, we would love to sit down and talk to you about your research if you have further questions, and we can help you work through that proposal development process.
Okay, so it seems like you've explained things so wonderfully. that nobody has any questions. Oh, we've got one here. Hi, I was curious if you knew of any grants that could be applied for to start a new library.
So that is really tough. Usually folks rely on donors with deep pockets to fund things like new libraries, alumni donors specifically. However, there are possibilities for applying for grants to develop specific center type arms of libraries or institutions. So if you were to want to develop something like a special collections offshoot of your library, or developing a certain program to meet specific needs that aren't met by your library as a whole. So the real answer to your question is no, but there are other ways to seek funding to expand your library's reach. And you'd have to do that in a programmatic way, likely, but there are funds to support that type of thing.
Wonderful. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay, I'm also going to post here our virtual conference evaluation. If you are planning to attend other sessions today, you can wait until the end of the day to fill this out. It's an overall evaluation of the conference, and you'll also be able to give individual presenters some feedback. So we hope you'll do that when you've completed watching the content from the virtual conference today. Thank you so much, Katie and Karen. This was really wonderful. I hope it gives everyone some great ideas and going out and funding some of the wonderful initiatives that you might have going on in your libraries and in your professional work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I will stay open for a few more minutes if anybody wanted to copy the chat. Thanks, and we hope to see you in some of the future sessions.